Hey guys. So yeah, jumping right into it, we pretty much start this episode off by getting a full-on backstory of Hao's rise to prominence. And one thing I immediately latched onto with this episode is I love how just Hao's mere existence as what's essentially as what is essentially the 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 pretty much progenitor of the Asakura family is kind of just the ultimate irony of the Asakura family history. Because on one hand, just from the brief exploration we've taken into learning Hao's history up to this point, like everything we've learned about Hao up to this point, and what we learned in this episode about his journey towards unlocking like the true power of the shaman, how in a lot of ways has even though pretty much how even though Hao's original intention was pretty much only pretty much in the pursuit of knowledge, Hao has proven himself to be the ultimate evil. And the thing is, it's one of those things where it wasn't. I don't think it presents itself as one of those things where you realize just pretty much how pretty much how becoming this ultimate evil was completely unintentional, because all he was searching for was knowledge. But at the same time, how becoming this sort of ultimate evil of the Asakura family and the world of the shaman, it's in some ways a bit of a cautionary tale of pretty much how pretty much not only power can corrupt, but how knowledge has the ability to also corrupt. Like if you think about it, Hao's pursuit of knowledge is ultimately what is what put him down the pretty much path he's currently on. And and but at the same time, despite all this, and despite it being undeniable that How is this ultimate evil, on the other hand, it's even harder to deny that the Asakura family as it exists today do still owe a lot of what they know to Hao himself. Like even to the point of using those same teachings in order to ward off his return. Like everything that the Asakura family knows, it's basically all thanks to Hao when you get down to it. Of course, as we know of current events in the beginning of the series, they pretty much they not only failed in order to ward off Hao's return, but I think it's but I also beg to say that I think Hao at this point, with pretty much him returning to his to pretty much pretty much his pretty much Asakura family bloodline, is now he's now at a point where he's grown beyond the power of his own teachings techniques that have been utilized by the Asakura, like to the point where those teachings aren't going to work against them anymore, or very few of them are. Which makes it even more so ironic that Yo and the others are going to have to learn the techniques Hao mastered in order to even have a chance at beating him, or at pretty much at beating him and just and warding off his influence from pretty much affecting the entire shaman world. Like this, it really is kind of ironic that in order to ward him off again, they still have to use his power. Um, and also I'm not gonna lie, maybe it's because it just translated better from page to screen, but I found the visual storytelling elements, like the wall painting of Hao, or the visualization of the elemental pentagram, much smoother in how they were used to visually tell the story Yo's grandpa was telling. Whereas in the manga, like don't get me wrong, it still flowed pretty well, but because there was pretty much so much more that was in the manga compared to the anime, where it went for a bit more of a minimalist approach. It does feel like the anime's version of telling this story. It just flows a little more smoother, honestly, and not as cluttered. Um, and yeah, this was definitely the episode where Anna leveled up, as it took her no time at all to subdue Hao's in order to in order to subdue Hao's in order to do like from Hao's Shikigami. But talking about the Shikigami itself, it's kind of funny because design wise, they're not that much different from how they looked in the original anime. Maybe sharper teeth, yet at the same time they're a lot more creepy looking, and I think part of that is just the small little attentions to detail and small animation touches added to them. This time, like how we see a more grotesque look of their skin underneath their like more, I guess, armored forms or something, or even just something as simple as seeing their eyes pop out, this seeing their eyes and how like just horrific they look. It all adds to the more horrific nature of them as these like spiritual demons. Of course, after that we immediately switch back to the main group, all kind of crushing, doting on Morphia, and then Kororo pretty much abandoning Horohoro. Which, one thing I really liked about this episode is how it does touch upon the idea that despite Horohoro's goal of wanting to save the wanting to save the wanting to save the Kurus, it does address the idea that through it does address the idea though that in even though he is still very passionate about his dream about creating a field of lily pads in order for Kororo's people to live, it also does this episode really addressed the idea that through his travels, Hororo, he hasn't necessarily abandoned his goal, but I think through his travels with Yo, he has somewhat lost a little bit of sight of that goal a bit, and it's unfortunate, and it's weakened his bond with pretty much Kororo, and that isn't just and that wasn't just jealousy at the time, that was literally like their bond kind of growing weaker. So, and even though Bluebell as a character was only a one-off, I do like how Horohoro, like, helping her and her dilemma with her friend Apollo the bear forced Horohoro into a position that not only strengthened his own resolve, but also really showed us that despite his lackadaisy personality, he still truly, genuinely understands the relationship between human and nature, and how it's not something you can control. All you can do is oversee it. And yet, at the same time, but by the end of the episode and with Apollo's death, I think Horohoro himself, he not only found it hard to listen to his own advice, but I think by the end of this episode, he also started to rethink the nature of that relationship between human and nature as well. Like, I think Horohoro after this is definitely going through a bit of a transformation, to be sure. Now here's the thing here's the thing with this episode. I've been around the anime community long enough to know that even if you were to tell people that these events, everything that played out was in the manga, they're still going to instantly kind of write this episode off as filler, and but the thing is, on top of providing some obviously great character development for Horohoro, let's just say every bit of development you see from the individual characters beyond this point, and especially this episode with Horohoro, is going to be essential for the sole purpose of the first half of this episode, where Anna is given the duty in order to deliver the Tome of the Shaman to Yo. Like, this episode was basically Horohoro strengthening himself in order to be conditioned in order to undergo the trial that's to come when pretty much Anna arrives with the Tome of the Shaman. Like, that's pretty much what these next couple episodes are basically going to be about, is these individual characters like strengthening their pretty much will and their will and their resolve in order to be ready to take on like Hao's trial of the Tome of the Shaman. Which, yeah, I kind of forget how the how this trial went in the manga, but all I do know is that it had to do with it's not going to be like in the anime where they literally go in the book. I think they actually do kind of like read it or something like that. Now, with that said, when it comes to art and animation, artwork especially, that's a little bit more of a mixed bag to talk about, because I'd say the first half of this episode does a lot of things better than the manga, but at least just on a presentation level. Like Horohoro, for example, in this episode, just his character design in what he wears and how he tied his hair and all that. It's way more epic than what he looked like in the manga, where I think they just kind of used his stock character design. But when we get to the second half with Horohoro confronting Apollo, that's where things aren't as good. And it's not even a case of art and animation being bad, but when you look at the level of detail that went into Apollo's design, and especially the scar on his eye in the manga, the anime's design of Apollo in some ways just looks okay by comparison. But on the flip side of that, the animation again is quite a bit better in the second half compared to the first half. So it all kind of balances itself out in the end. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. I'm on Twitter and on Crunchyroll. Be sure to hit the notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Death Night of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.